Hi, everybody. My name is Ramanjeet Korchima. I've had a lot of clients who always ask me a lot of questions about spousal sponsorship. You know, what are the requirements? What exactly do they need to, do before they think about sponsoring their spouse? Obviously, the number one, there are two ways. You can be in a common law relationship and you can be in a or you can sponsor your spouse, or you can sponsor your common law partner. I'm going to go through the checklist today. Basically, we'll keep it simple. I'm going to go through the document checklist today and explain maybe more in detail what exactly is immigration looking for. In order for you to sponsor your spouse, obviously you need to be married and have your marriage certificate with you because you would need that to submit your sponsorship application. In order for you to sponsor your common law partner, you need to be living together for a minimum a year, and then that way you can sponsor your common law partner. Well, I'm going to cover the spousal side first, and in the end, I'm going to cover the small things that, as a common law partner, you need to attach with your application that you need to make sure that you have. For mostly, we're covering the spousal side, and then a lot of it overlaps with what you need to submit as a part for your partner or spouse. Let's go into the document checklist, and then we will talk about rest of the things. Obviously, there are a bunch of application forms that you need to submit. There are a lot of documentary evidence that you need to show to the immigration officer that this relationship is genuine. There is one thing I always tell my clients, that you would rather take your time to do your initial file, do it properly, give enough proof, rather than, not giving enough proof and then immigration having to ask you, or, for them to be not satisfied that relationship is not genuine. So take your time with initial steps. I understand sometimes it can be frustrating, but you'd rather do that, okay? Okay, so number one, the most important thing is to have this document checklist. You can just go on Google and search sponsor your spouse. There are just few things that changes if you're sponsoring your spouse from outside Canada or inside Canada. It does change a little bit based on that, but there's not a huge difference. Basically, you have this document checklist open, okay? The most important thing is you do need to submit. This application is done online. You cannot do a paper application unless, there's a disability or, some issues like that. A lot of it is just online application that you would have to submit, and you really would have to make sure that you do not miss any documents. Because if you miss any signatures, any document that you were supposed to include in the document, in the application, your application would get returned for being incomplete. So that's the most essential thing, to not missing any document that's being listed and looking more into detail, okay? So the application form 1344, I won't be going into detail of these forms in this video. I'm just going to go through it. So, number one is application form 1344 that you need to make sure you open that in the Adobe and then fill that out properly. Make sure you follow all the instructions. Second is paying for your application fees. You can follow the link that's here. Simply click on it, make an account, and you can pay your application fees. Mostly with online, they do require you to attach this receipt. This is important document, okay? So just simply click as you go with each thing. You have your document checklist. You've done the form. Like I said, you need to open this in Adobe. You need to save it and right-click and open that in Adobe, okay? Application, it has to be done correctly. You need to make sure you pay your application correctly, okay? I will not be going through that either in this financial evaluation. This is mostly for people who are also sponsoring the dependent children. But for the sake of this video, I'm just focusing more on people who are not sponsoring their children, because there are more requirements. It's not I'm not saying it's going to be a lot of documents that you need to add, but there are a few more documents that you do need to add if you have dependent children. And okay, so what type of application is this? As I explained initially in the video, there are two types of application. People who are living in Canada with their sponsor, okay? and they're applying for the spouse or common law partner in Canada class. So this is, when your principal applicant and sponsor both are in Canada, okay? And that's what you call the spousal or common law partner in Canada class. Second is if your principal applicant, which is your spouse, they're currently living outside Canada, so that would be the family class, okay? Number 7 is country-specific requirements. Each country have their own requirements, based on what type of marriage certificate is accepted. So make sure that if your partner is from, any of these countries, make sure you put the current, the country your partner is from, and then open the requirements, and then you'll see. Make sure you read that in detail. That's really important. A lot of clients miss that, okay? And this is both for outside Canada and inside Canada, okay? Additional family information form. This is basically you're filling out the principal applicant just filling out their family information form. Like I said, it's just all online. If you go through it, you'll see that you can fill that out. 5669. This is more about your education, your employment history, and this form is also now it's digital, so you can submit that online. Okay. 5532 form is more about how did you meet, where you can talk more in detail about the ceremonies that you've had. And then it's filled by both principal applicant and the sponsor. That's very important, okay? Make sure that you sign wherever it needs to be signed in this form. Use a representative. If you're hiring a representative, make sure that form is done correctly as well and signed by both by you. I would ignore this one for now on. I don't really have a lot of clients who want to give, authority to someone else too, where they can talk on their behalf. So you can just ignore this one, because if you have a representative, then as a representative, we can talk on your behalf and we can get the information needed. Okay, so the most important part, I think this is what I get a lot of calls for, because the forms, it's still doable. You still need help because sometimes it's very confusing, because you want to make sure you don't miss anything. Like I'm just going over the basics, but there are a lot of details in it too. It has to be done correctly. So I'm not undermining the forms are done easily, but it's just that it has to be done correctly. Okay. Part B now. Supporting documents required. Okay. So this is what you need as a sponsor. Okay. If you're permanent resident or your Canadian passport holder, you need to make sure that you submit a copy of your Canadian passport or your permanent resident card, okay? There are obviously a bunch of other options that you can follow if you want to, but normally a lot of my clients, sponsors, people who are sponsoring from here, they do have a Canadian passport or the permanent resident card, okay? Then you need to explain if you as a sponsor, you're living outside Canada, then you need to mention that. But I'm focused for sake of just this video, I'm just focusing on sponsors who are inside Canada, who are in Canada. Okay. Then you need to explain to you need to mention that if you and you sponsor and a principal applicant, if you have any kids together. So that's the main one. If you know. Mostly is no, but yes, yeah. Then you make sure you submit your kid's birth certificate and all of that. But a lot of my clients are normally the ones who don't have kids, the ones who've come up to me. But yes, in case it's needed, if you have a kid, birth certificate is another proof that shows that you also have a kid together. That helps with you. Like that's how you can show to the immigration officer that relationship is genuine, right? That's a pretty good proof. We're not saying that it's one of the required proofs, okay? So the fourth one is previous relationships. If you sponsor have been, if they basically do ask if you've been married to any other person that you're sponsoring. Normally, I do recommend that you should be completed with your divorce and everything, and then think about sponsoring your new partner. And then so there is a period of time also. I won't be talking about that in this video, but there's a period of time that you need to make sure that you because as a sponsor, if you've already previously sponsored someone else, there's a period of time that you need to wait before you can sponsor someone else. Or if you're a principal applicant and yes, principal applicant is different, but sponsor, yes, you need to make sure that you wait that period, okay? You cannot just keep sponsoring people. There's a waiting period that you have to follow as a sponsor. Okay, you need to answer if you sponsor someone for permanent residency, who was their you will need to mention their name, their date of birth, and all of that. This question does come up in the forms as well. Are you currently married to anyone that's sponsoring? Normally the answer for that is yes. A lot of people, they've already been through their divorce and then, wait a few years and then they find a new partner and sponsor them. Okay. Have you ever been previously married? So for this is for those client sponsors who've been previously married, and you say yes. You need to make sure that you have your divorce certificate because you need that. That's really important. That's one of the required documents to submit for spousal sponsorship. This is for people who've been married before, okay? So make sure you submit a proper divorce certificate. It's in English. Normally it should be in English, but in case, just any document you have, you need to submit that when it comes to spousal sponsorship if you've been divorced previously. Okay. And there are more options. If your former spouse is deceased, then you need to provide the death certificate. And then if you annulled your marriage, all that information. Basically, the gist of it is that anything info you have from the past relationship, any legal document that can show to the immigration officer that you're no longer with that person, and that's really important. This is important. This is a required document. Okay, and then. Similar thing, have you ever previously been in a common law relationship? This is for people who claimed, who helped their common law partner in the past to get the PR, but they're no longer with their common law partner. I will not be going into detail about what additional information is needed for that. I'm keeping it's really basic for this video. Okay, so number 5, this is for sponsors' employment slash source of income. If you're working in Canada, normally, I recommend my clients to get a proper job letter from their employer. Make sure that job letter mentions that how long you've been working with your employer, what is your salary, and all of that. And it doesn't really need to go into details about what do you do at work, but more about to show to the immigration officer that you are somebody who's been working for a long time, you're financially good, and then your salary and everything. It can even be part-time. There's no such requirements that you need to be full-time or part-time. As long as you have a job in Canada and you're doing that and your employer is willing to give you a job letter, okay? There are a lot, if you're self-employed, then that's different. A lot of clients who were self-employed and they were sponsored, then they include their company documents. Sometimes you get a letter from the accountant, how much is, the company making, and then other information like, to showcase that, the sponsor is the director of the company, and then a lot of other information. I will not be going into detail about that as well. And a lot of documents from CRA, you can always attach a notice of assessment. This is important document, by the way. This is required document. Your notice of assessment, the most recent one, okay? That's a key. Make sure you don't submit your old notice of assessment because sometimes files do get returned for being incomplete. So make sure you attach notice of assessment or proof of income option, income statement option. See, if you have an account with CRA, I know you can access these online, or you can always ask your accountant. Okay, if you're not working in Canada. Normally I recommend that it's a good idea to have a job, because if you're not working in Canada, then you have to find a co-sponsor. It does complicate it. For the sake of this video, I'm not going to get into detail about this. I'm going to just assume that whoever's looking at it they are working in Canada, because if you're not working in Canada, you won't be able to, it's going to get hard to sponsor. It's ideally you should be working at the time I'm sponsoring your partner. Okay, more in detail now. This is for a principal applicant. That's really important. These are the more documents from the sponsor side. There are not much documents from the sponsor side, but principal applicant will have more documents that immigration officer wants you to submit. Okay, your principal applicant, this is for you. Your most recently issued passport. Make sure your passport is, valid for a long time. Make sure you check the expiry date on it, okay? Make sure you attach all the biographical pages. Do not just do front page and back page. It really depends which country you're from. Make sure you include all the biographical pages in that as well. Okay. This is for a passport as being one of them. And the second one is this one that we're looking at. If you, the principal applicant, you're living in Canada, then you need to make sure you provide a proof of status in Canada. If you're on a work permit, study permit, visitor record, anything, you need to give proof to the immigration officer that you are eligible to be in Canada. You are, you're inside Canada. If you do not have a status, yes, you can still, this is for sponsor. Yes, sponsor, you can still sponsor your spouse inside Canada, even if they're out of status inside Canada. Something I want to be clear on, because this is a question I get asked a lot. My partner, they went out of status, can we still submit an application inside Canada? Yes, you can still submit an application inside Canada. Obviously, this is just the basics I'm talking about. If you have a partner who's outside Canada, it's ideal for you to book a consultation with me, and then I can look into it more in detail why they went outside, out of status, if they were, not following any rules, or if they were non-compliant. So I need to look into those details. But yes, the answer is yes, you can still submit your sponsor your spouse, even if they're out of status inside Canada. But there's a lot of things that you will need to attach. It's not. So I highly recommend to book a consultation if you want to talk about that in detail. Birth certificate for principal applicant. Make sure your birth certificate is translated if it's not in English. It shouldn't be just partial in English and partial in your own language and then expecting it to submit, because then your file can still get returned because your birth certificate is not translated, and you have to make sure that you get it from a certified translator, not a translation done by you at home or someone else, okay? It has to be stamped and everything. So this is gonna be in your country-specific requirements that I initially talked about. If you're from any other country, that it's gonna have a proper list. If you're from Philippines, if you're from Netherlands, if you're from Pakistan, if you're from India, like they all have their own requirements. You really need to make sure that you go through those requirements and attach those documents. Some countries don't have these country-specific requirements, but it's on you to make sure you look into that. So this is more for country-specific. A few countries who do require you to have more documents on top of on top of your birth certificate, your national identity cards, copy of your family booklet, or if your country-specific requirements doesn't show any of these things, you could just say neither of the above applies to me. Okay. Civil status documents. This is when it gets really important, you guys. You need to make sure that you have everything. Here, if you're married, make sure you have your marriage certificate. If you're married, this is one thing that I got. If you're married in Canada, if you got married in Canada, there's not much you need to do about the marriage certificate. You can simply attach them. Or if you're from one of the different countries, you need to make sure that your marriage is legally registered in your country. It's not that you got married religiously, but if you did not register your marriage legally with the whatever the government requirements are, and then you simply attach the certificate that you got from when you got the religious ceremony done, that will not be enough, because immigration requires you to legally register your marriage in your country. Okay. If you're inside Canada, you don't need to worry. You are already legally registered, and the marriage certificate is good enough. I will not be getting into details about marriage certificate too much, but that's one common thing that I have looked at. I have seen from my past experiences that you need to make sure your marriage is legally registered in your country you get married in. Okay. If you've been issued any civil union certificate, that really depends on what country you're from. Normally, if I'm doing inside Canada application, I simply just click on this and I attach the marriage certificate. Okay. This is for principal applicant. If you've previously been married or divorced, you need to declare that. You will also need to attach your divorce certificate. That's really important. And then if you are going through the process but you're legally separated, then there are a lot of other documents that comes in. I will not be getting into detail about that as well. If you've been previously married, it was annulled, this is all related to that. your common law relationship, there are a lot of, your common law partner, spouse, principal applicant. This is who I'm talking about. If their spouse passed away or common law partner passed away, then, their death certificate, that's important. So you need to make sure that you attach these documents. It's really important to read this checklist step by step. And I hope this video helps you guys to understand it more in detail. If you're previously sponsored by another person, regardless of the outcome of sponsorship application, this is for people like who were getting previously sponsored by, someone else, by their previous partner, but then they somehow did not go through with the sponsorship application. You will also need to mention that. That's really important. The most important, the key here is that you mention as much as you can rather than immigration officer finding out after they go through your file. Like, that's the most important key. You need to give as much as proof. You need to do your file so good that it would not get to the, the next stage of interview stage or anything. Basically, you need to convince the officer that this is a genuine relationship and, you're not missing any documents. Each client has their own thing. So this will be based on that. You need to make sure you attach these documents. I'm not going to be talking about the children part because I'm keeping it very basic. If you have children who are dependent and they're getting sponsored by your spouse, you will need to book a consultation with me because those requirements are a bit different than a regular spousal application. Okay, police certificates. This is very important. You need to make sure that you go through. You click on the website and you go through what are the actual requirements from Immigration Canada, from the country that you're from. What type of police certificate are they looking for? You need to follow that. And if after you turn 18 and above, if you've lived in any other country for more than 6 months, you need to make sure you attach the police certificate from those countries too. It's not just simply that country of your residence or where you stay, where you were born. It's also any other country that you've lived in for more than 6 months. You will need to attach those police certificates. And keep in mind, when you go on the website, each country has their own, Immigration Canada wants you to have their own documents that you really need to attach. If you go to your own police certificate branch or whatever police branch, they might give you something basic, but then sometimes Immigration Canada wants more in detail. You need to make sure that you attach that, because if you do not attach a right document, your application can get returned back for being incomplete. Sometimes it takes a really long time for them to return your application. You don't want to go behind. That's why I really think that consultation or hiring a legal counsel for something like this is much more important, because you tend to lose so much time when you try to do it on your own. But I'm not discouraging. That's why I'm making this video. And if somebody, they still want to have understanding and how that works, I'm explaining. But yes, book a consultation with me if you want to talk more in detail about the police certificate, what exactly are the requirements. For the Canadian certificate, if you are living inside Canada, normally IRCC requests that for you later on. You don't need to get your police certificate and attach that with your application. If you want to do it, that's fine too. Like, it's not like you're not allowed to submit it, but it's not required. Okay. I will not be getting into more about officials who sponsor the principal applicants who've done the military service or worked in police back home, because I think that's very separate. We'll just keep it basic. Photos, that's also really important, you guys. I know it doesn't look like the photos, like it's just you got a picture done and you submit it. No, you need to make sure you follow every single thing that's written here in this. Click on this. See what are the requirements from a photo center. What are the requirements? What exactly is immigration looking for? Size and everything. So you need to make sure you go to a proper one. I've had clients who got picture done but never met the requirements, and files have gotten returned in the past. So make sure you follow everything that's written in that, okay? Normally they don't ask for medical examination. They ask for that later. However, if you can always attach if you want to, but normally IRCs will request the medical later. It's not something you need to attach with your initial sponsorship application. Okay, so the next one is proof of relationship to sponsor. This is the most important key, you guys, is really need to make sure that you attach everything that's mentioned here. I'm not saying that all of it's required, but try your best to attach as much as you can. I've had spouses who, went back home, only met their, spouse once, and then, didn't go on honey. I'm not saying honeymoon, you have to go on honeymoon, but just think from an officer point of view, right? How do you show them your relationship is genuine? You need to make sure you have enough pictures, pictures that, that can showcase that, this is a couple. You need to show effort that, if your spouse is outside Canada, what effort have you shown to go see them? So the officer will be looking at a lot of these things. If you only went once to get married and that was the first time you met them, and then I'm not saying the relationship is not genuine. That's not what I'm trying to say. I'm just saying from an officer point of view, the officer can come back and question you. Hey, how come you met your partner once and you got married? How come you never thought about going back and visiting your partner? And there are a lot of other things the officer looks at. What type of religious ceremony did you you had? How many people were there? Was it a really small gathering? It's just you and your partner and then 2 more people. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you need to showcase like this is a genuine relationship. We had a lot of people who came in. So like it really goes like step by step what type of documents you're submitting, like, because you do not want office to come back and question you about your relationship. That's the key goal that you want to do just such a good job initially. That's why I recommend that it's better to hire a counsel do this rather than doing it on, because sometimes I've seen genuine relationship, genuine immigration files going to the interview stage just because the file was just not submitted properly. Okay, let's talk about the proof of relationship. Are you and your spouse currently living together? If you say no, this is for a spouse who are outside Canada. Okay? So, proof of contact, provide letters. This is basically talking about letters from your family members who attended your wedding. If you had families who flew home, for your marriage, for your wedding, and anywhere. It could be anywhere, but maybe their airline tickets, their boarding passes to showcase that this was a genuine relationship. We even had family members, flying out from Canada or from anywhere else to wherever you're getting married, outside Canada. Okay, so that's really important. Letters from them, proper letter with their, there's a format that you can follow, but it's mostly, we've known the couple for this long, we attended their wedding, we flew from here, or even from your family who are also in the country of residence, even the country that you get married in, even if the family that they're close family members, like your partner's mother, father, siblings, friends, who've known about the relationship for a long time, so who can, vouch that this relationship is genuine. Their contact information, I haven't really seen an immigration officer contacting, but sometimes that becomes a key thing later on if you file, for some reason doesn't go through initially and then it gets to appeal. But I'm going to just ignore that part. I'm not talking. I'm just going to try to keep it very basics. Okay. Printed text messages. So what I'm trying to say from an officer point of view, when you get into a relationship with someone, you know that this is the partner I'm getting married to, even if they're outside Canada, you talk, right? You message each other, good morning, and all sort of more personal things that you talk up to each other because you know that's the person you're getting married to. So all those text messages, really important. Make sure that if you have a spouse that partner you are going to be getting married to, you keep this true. Do not delete your messages, your WhatsApp messages, your regular iPhone messages, anywhere. Keep those. Do not delete those from both sides. Okay. If you email to each other, I'm pretty sure like that's nobody emails like that anymore. Social media conversation. Social media conversation basically means if you have a social media, you post it online about your partner, your picture together, your wedding pictures together, and how many people liked it. That means you are showing to the world that this is a partner I'm getting married to. I got married to this woman. One key thing that I've seen don't just make an account and have 2 to 3 followers on Facebook, whatever, and then add just random pictures, because they will catch that you did that just for the sake of to show social media to the immigration office. So they get into that. That's how they get into a lot of details. They will see how many followers you have, and are you just keep adding pictures, nobody even liking them, commenting on them. So make sure it's more genuine, right? A lot of us have social media. I'm not saying this is the most required, but is this something that helps with your file? 100% yes. Okay, from both sides. Really, really important. Okay, because that will showcase that everybody knows about your relationship. That means it's a genuine relationship. People are commenting and liking it. Any other proof of contact between you and your sponsor? If you're FaceTime with each other every day, attaching those, screenshot those FaceTime calls, and and you make sure you even do maybe week by week, month by month, like that showcase that you've been talking to each other almost. If even when you're doing FaceTime, taking a screenshot of you FaceTiming each other, like I know it sounds crazy that you would think that how it's like, but that really does help, and maybe make sure you have the timestamp as well on top that shows that you've been talking to each other for that long. Okay, so but you can't make sure that you don't overdo it. Don't just submit so much that, because online it won't allow you to do that to begin with. So make sure you have a good proof, proper proof, and in case try to have conversations mostly in English, because then otherwise because how else the immigration officer will know, right? He wouldn't know what you're saying if you're doing in your own language, because they can't read that, or otherwise you have to get that translated from a certified translator. Okay, proof of this is what I was talking about initially, you guys. Proof of your sponsor's visit. So when they go see you if you're outside Canada. Airline tickets, boarding passes that showcase that, okay, this person actually went home. Photocopy, sometimes when they stamp your passports, this is for sponsors, stamping. So make sure that you have all of that included in this application. And if your sponsor did not visit your partner, and you just went to see them once and got married, you need to explain why didn't you visit, what exactly reason you had that you did not go see your partner for so long. Because like I explained earlier, that can be questioned. Like, how come you did not go see your partner? And you need to explain, and you need to have a proper good reason, the reason you didn't go, okay? Okay, so this was more for outside Canada. For the spouse and principal applicant who are not living together, I'm going to talk about now who are inside Canada. For the inside Canada people, you can still follow a lot of things I talked about for the outside Canada proof, because I'm pretty sure pictures, you would also have to do pictures, social media thing. You will also need to include letters from your family member, or if you both took a trip together. This is for inside Canada, anywhere outside Canada. If you took a trip within Canada, you booked a hotel, you went to anywhere in BC, Ontario, anywhere, have that proof, because that you traveling together is a proof that you're in a, genuine relationship. You travel together, your hotel receipt, your hotel booking, even food you bought there. Like, I know this sounds crazy, but that actually, honeymoon pictures. This is for outside Canada, inside Canada. Where did you go for your honeymoon? Your pictures, your hotel booking. These all things show to the officer this relationship is genuine, right? Because, so this is, I'm coming back to the inside Canada. If you own a property together, a lot of clients who come to me, I don't see that much about like people, because if you're temporary resident in Canada, very rare, even though you can, but very rare that they own a property together. So, if you do, then sure, residential property papers. A lot of people rental agreements. If you're renting, that's really important. From the day you're renting, make sure your partner's name is mentioned in that rental agreement too. Don't panic if you don't have it. It's not like required, but it would be nice to have your partner's name in it. Any utility bills, A lot of clients, normally they don't have the electricity bill. Sometimes, yes, you can have electricity bill and make sure both of the sponsor and a principal applicant name is in that bill. Phone bills, telephone bills, internet bills, credit card. This is like I always recommend to clients to open a joint bank together. Obviously you both sides put money in, and then that becomes another proof that, you have a bank account together, your name, your spousal name, address that you're living at, like really small things that you need to make sure you keep an eye, right? Vehicle insurance, if you were this is for inside Canada. If you have an insurance, if you principal applicant, you have a temporary resident status, and you will be allowed to drive. And then if your sponsor add the name in the vehicle insurance, that becomes another good proof with the address there too. Make sure the address is same that you're living at, because to showcase that you've been living together, even though you're married, so you should be living together. Any driver license, if a lot of temporary residents who get out of status and then they have their spouses sponsoring them, sometimes they don't have these IDs anymore because, it's gone expired and they're gone out of status. So don't panic. It's just, even from previous, as long as it has the same address on it, that's the biggest proof that you two are in a genuine relationship. I already talked about bank account. I think that's one of the amazing, that's a really good proof, where it shows that maybe you're doing all of your expenses from that account. That shows that, okay, see, we used it, we were living together. Even something like Uber, Skip, you can even have, if you have that account that shows the food that you've ordered in the past and what address it got delivered to. You can really go into that much detail and then show to the officer. The more you show it, the easier it is for officers to believe the relationship is genuine. Tax documents, your notice of assessment, your credit cards, insurance policy. If you have a partner, I'm not saying insurance policy is one of the required documents, but think about it, right? From an officer's point of view, if you have any sort of insurance and your partner's added on that with the address that you're currently living at, see how good that proof is, because the officer will actually see that, hey, this is a genuine relationship. This person added their partner under the insurance policy, anything, life insurance or insurance from your work, adding your partner, that can be one of the great proofs for the spousal sponsorship, or even for common law. Because the common law, even you can follow all of this. This is going to be the proof that shows you're genuinely together. Okay. Okay. So, do you and your spouse have any children together? I'm going to go for no for this one. I'm only focusing on more like a basic thing. Is this the first marriage of both of you and sponsor? No one, yes, based on that. We already talked about that. Have you and sponsor been married for minimum 2 years? You don't need to be married for minimum 2 years in order to sponsor. This is just a question they'd ask. So you say click no one, yes, based on that. Okay. The one last thing that's also important to talk about. This is for spouses who got married. Your wedding pictures, wedding day pictures, proper pictures, maybe even a picture with a lot of family members to show that, show to the office that this relationship is genuine, and there's so many family members in this picture. So more pictures from like a crowd, people who attended your wedding. It's really important, you show those customary celebrations you've had, the events you did, engagement, proposal, anything, birthday celebrations together, 40th birthday, 30th birthday, all those pictures in these pictures, because that's what's going to show to the officer that this person's been, actually together. You see how, notice I keep talking about genuine relationship. That's really the main key thing here to show to the office is a genuine relationship. Okay, obviously you need to have a limit, you can't do more than a certain limit for the pictures. So make sure those 20 pictures, 30 pictures are so good enough that showcase every celebration you've done together. Yeah, okay. So select at least 2 of the following 4 options and provide the document requested for each. Insurance benefits, good one, like I already explained. That's a really good proof. Highly recommended. Highly recommended. Financial support. If you are a partner who's outside Canada, inside Canada, You can show that, you're giving money to your partner, you're sending money to your partner back home to, support them financially because that's your partner. That becomes one proof. Even inside Canada, where you're e-transferring your partner to, help them financially get stable because, they're not. If, that becomes another proof, really good proof that you've supported your financially. All your e-transfers you've sent to them and all of that. Letters from family, friends, I already talked about them in the beginning. Anybody who knows about your relationship or, for anything, who attended your wedding, a proper letter done for them. Obviously you need to book a consultation with me if you want to talk about more in detail. Yes, so pretty much that's it, you guys. It's really, really, really important that you try your best to attach all these documents. Even if you don't have it, then you need to make sure you work on it. That's I explained initially in the beginning of the application. You rather take your time now, not rush into things now, because if you rush it and you don't have half of these documents, the officer will come back and question it. There's no way they won't. Like, a lot of them want more documents. So you just do your file so good in the beginning that you can get to that stage. And that's why I say book a consultation. Get it done from a professional, because as professionals, we know what exactly is the officer looking for, what type of document, and how to present your file more better. Okay, how to tell your story better, right? Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. Okay, so if you are in a common law relationship, you need to show, any cohabitation agreement or any document that shows that you live together with each other for a year, a rental agreement, any legal agreement that can show that you have lived together for a minimum year. Maybe you're currently not living together and your partner had to move to a different country for whatever reason, and you need to explain that, and you're not living together at the moment. But whatever proof you have from outside Canada or inside Canada, you need to make sure that you show that you've lived together for a year. Okay. And the second one, I'm scrolling down, just give me a second. Rest are the documents, for you and your common law partner. They're pretty similar. Your residential property, if you own a property, even here or back home together as a common law partner. Your rental agreement is a very important one to showcase that you two have lived together for a year. Like, it should have both of your names, a proper legal rental agreement from anywhere, outside Canada, inside Canada. And then rest, I've already went through with the spousal side of things. Then it becomes the same repetitive. Your utility, your cell phone, credit card, joint bank account, vehicle insurance, government IDs, any of the documents that you can show, insurance policies even. Yeah, so a lot of those documents are very similar to the spousal side. And obviously the common law declaration form, you need to sign that and get that notarized if you are in a common law partner in order to submit your application. So that's one thing that's different than now, because you wouldn't have a marriage certificate, because that's for spouses. For a common law, you need to have a common law declaration form, stamped and everything. Okay?